seeing recovery. Current recovery is the worst it's been since the Great Depression. Is that because we just had a bad collapse, or is it because people don't have need for workers anymore? We do future scenarios. I don't know which of those is. The second is called structural unemployment. The unemployment is built into the economy. Not so much here. I'm glad to see you're not experiencing that in most of the country. But this is the last study that I want to show you, and that has to do with what jobs are going to be in the future. These researchers at MIT divided the work into non-routine and routine. And notice that all the routine and the non-routine manual are declining since 1980 or 90. And the non-routine interactive, which is working with other people, and the non-routine analytical, which is the knowledge work, the head work, being an analyst, those are both increasing. Now we've got a problem. Where do non-routine people come from? Now there's 20 or 30% of them in the economy today, I would suggest, that are doing okay, and they've learned how to do that, and they're doing very well. And many of you are there, you're successful. My kids are successful, the same thing. But are we preparing the whole workforce for non-routine work? That's the biggest problem. And where does that come back? That comes back to my field in education. Let's see if I can get this next thing. Dave, would you punch that for me? Yeah. This is a cover of New Yorker recently, September 17th. Picture says is 1,000 words. What's the difference between school and life? This is school. These kids all lined up here, good little kids going into class, and this is life. Are we having school like life? No, we're having school like school. You come in, you line up. My wife's been a principal or teacher for her whole career. She took over in elementary school. She says, do you know that all that the students do 20% of the day is line up? She said, wow, they would be so much smarter if we were teaching them rather than lining up for the bathroom and lining them up for recess and lining them up for lunch, going the to and from, etc., back and forth. So what these kids are doing is lining up. And when they get in the classroom, they'll sit in rows, and they'll raise their hand, and they'll be good, and they are being prepared for the economy that was the last economy, not the next economy. That, to me, is the fundamental problem. It's not that our teachers are lazy, or the tests are too hard, or the schools don't get enough money. Those may all be true, too. It's that the form of education we have is preparing people to work in the office, work in the factory, work in the traditional jobs, not work in these jobs where you have to be smart, you have to be self-managed, you have to be able to work with other people, you have to be responsible. All you have to do in school to get by is to do what the teacher says. That's not the economy that we're in. So, a person graduates from college, boss says, okay, here's your job, go figure it out. And you say, how do I do that? And more, the response is, we don't know, that's why we hired you. You have to be entrepreneurial. You have to be a problem solver. You have to be creative to be successful in this economy. Now, this is not going to happen this year or next year, but ultimately, this is the direction that we're going. So, when there are now 4 billion people in the world in 15 years who are prepared to do the routine jobs, and we have machines that are more capable than they are today, the only way our grandkids are going, kids and grandkids are going to be able to have a decent life is to do something the machine and overseas workers cannot do, and that's this kind of person. So what kind of people are we looking for? Dave, could be again. Not those who are good little students, but rather, again, those who are enterprising, what I'll call enterprising people. Results-oriented, responsibility, networkers. Now, what would it take for a school to take that as a set of learning objectives rather than, so it's not the subjects, it's not how much history you know, it's not how much math you know, though those things are important. It's the whole environment in which students spend 12 years of those very important, formative 12 years of life in a structured environment. And sure, it needs to be safe, and they are children. But where are they learning the skills on the right? Now, if you were to go out and go to your school board and say, I think we need to prepare for school, I heard this futurist, he was crazy, but still, there's had a few good things to say, whatever, whatever. Who would be against an idea like this? The answer is everyone. The teacher doesn't have to teach that stuff because they were never taught that stuff. They think of a classroom like that and all they see is chaos. Oh my gosh, students pursuing their own interests, working in groups, doing these kind of things. Well, I've lost control. That would be their problem. And how do I grade this anyway? I can't grade self-responsibility. I can't grade teamwork. I can grade a history test. I can grade a math problem. Who would also not like it? The best students and their parents. Because the best students have figured out how to game this system, how to be good at this system. And those students have high aspirations. They want to go to a highly rated university. And they want to come out of that university with a highly rated job, maybe an excellent state university like Kansas State or University of Kansas or Texas A&M, maybe even an Ivy League or California like Berkeley or USC or some University of San Diego. They need a high grade for that. And that's part of the system. So they're not going to want this either if they don't know how to play that game. So this is a very, very tough problem that we're talking about. And again, it's no one's fault. We've had a system that was good at preparing people for the economy that was highly successful in the late 19th and early 20th century. And we do not have a system yet for figuring out how to prepare people for the economy of this century. How to be entrepreneurial, responsible network. That's, to me, a really serious problem. And this is where we need to have a conversation. Every other industry in this country, I will claim, has been through the disruptive end of its era. I already talked about the music industry, the publishing industry, the military, the airlines. Do away with the Civil Aeronautics Board, which gave permission to fly between City A and City B, and all of a sudden we have competition, and they end up losing cumulatively since 1970s $4 billion. Healthcare, managed care, insurance, about to go through another disruptive change with the federal legislation. Every single industry has been through that except education. School today is pretty much what school was. And frankly, we as parents and we as citizens and voters are supporting that because it was good enough for me, it's good enough for them. Well, I don't think that's true anymore. I think, sure, having a nice ordered school and learning your math problems and learning history and English and learning how to write correct punctuation is absolutely necessary for being successful, but it's not sufficient. It will not give them the jobs of the future because those jobs are going to be taken by people who are not in this country or ultimately by machines. And they'll be, so it is, who's the successful person? The person who knows how to work with the machine. Let the machine do the routine stuff. Let the person do the creative, non-routine stuff. So this is I think it's a very difficult problem that we're facing as a society. And I have a lot more, and I'm going to stop. Blessedly, I know. But this is a challenge. And I think, our country has been through many challenges before. We faced up to the Russians. We faced up to our enemies in World War I and World War II. We faced up to the Civil War. We faced up to the Japanese in the 80s. We're facing up to overseas competition today. We've succeeded in every other case, and I have no reason to believe we won't succeed in this. But boy, when I come back in 2027, you are going to be a much different world, because I hope by then we've realized what we need to prepare students for. It's not necessarily just more money. It's certainly not more of the same. It is a completely rethink of the education system. With that, let me stop and I'll be glad to take some questions. Thank you very much.